Another Wednesday's come and gone, and I've got some comics. Let's talk about them. Hey, welcome to Nine Panel Grid. This week, we've seen totalitarian manipulation, hellish possessions, and editorial tinkering, but not the kind that you think. But we're going to kick things off this week with Absolute Power number 2, written by Mark Waid with artwork by Dan Mora. So this was a really fun continuation of the Absolute Power storyline as we see Amanda Waller continuing her fight against the superheroes, and they are really down for the count at this point, where the greater superhero population has been depowered, and the people who are really left standing right now are kind of, holed up in the Fortress of Solitude, trying to figure out what their next plan is going to be. Wade is doing a really good job kind of making this feel really connected to the greater DCU. It doesn't feel like something that is an event just for an event's sake. You can definitely see how it's going to impact the greater DCU in a lot of different facets. The thing that really is a hindrance on this issue, unfortunately, is Dan Mora's artwork is set at such a high standard that the coloring on this entire issue just feels so muted, and it does such a disservice to the greatness that is Dan Mora. It's a little bit of a letdown here. His artistic quality, though, remains very, very high. I'm having a lot of fun with this event here. I think that it's going to be something that is going to be talked about here for at least the next coming years, and I definitely see how this is going to be impactful for all of the superheroes within this world, particularly Superman. And this issue right here leaves you on a cliffhanger that really feels earned and warranted, and I can't wait to see where they go with this next. All right, next up we have Ain't No Grave number 4, written by Scotty Young with artwork by Jorge Corona. This was a really fun idea, and it's something that we've seen in other comics, and in fact, we've seen it over an entire line of comics here, where this issue is completely wordless. There is no dialogue, there's no narration, albeit the very last page of the book itself. But it's a really cool way, especially of developing the themes and the tone of this issue, particularly as it deals with our main character Ryder, kind of like living with this depression and living with this duress that she's been going through as she's been working her way through purgatory or hell, however you want to perceive it, trying to actually get to death itself, the manifestation of death, so that she doesn't have to worry about dying anytime in the future. Really cool exploration of those themes, being that Scotty Young kind of leaves the reins to Jorge Corona, and I think he does a really masterful job. In prior issues, I spoke about how he made things like a poker game entertaining and enthralling, and he does the same thing here, albeit kind of flipping it around, being depression. You feel all of the moroseness of this character, and you see the visualization of her being drugged down by this very, much not literally but physically within the story. Really cool, really great structure of the story, and I love just the trust that they have developed between them, as this is one of the many series that they've worked on together. So I'm really excited to see where they continue with this. I believe that they have one more issue left, and this issue leaves us on a cliffhanger similar to Absolute Power. So earned, so deserved, and I can't wait to see how they finalize this. All right, jumping back into that Absolute Power world, let's talk Batman number 151, written by Chip Zdarsky with artwork by Mike Hawthorne. So this is one of the tie-ins of the Absolute Power storyline, and I think it's a pretty effective tie-in, as it really kind of deepens what's happening within that world, and it all makes sense. It doesn't feel necessary, but it also doesn't feel like it's so pushed to the side that it's totally unnecessary either. It kind of walks that razor's edge of being a good tie-in issue. So Zdarsky's doing a really good job of crafting the greater Batman story, and I know that we've kind of had this notion in the past, as Mike Hawthorne has taken over and done entire arcs of this series previously. Also did the same thing in the Daredevil book that Zdarsky was writing. But the same notion kind of rings true here, which is that Mike Hawthorne is a good artist, and I'm not knocking the quality of his artwork, because it's a really good looking book. It just doesn't feel like it fits in a Batman book, especially when the artist that you're working against, or trying to work with, I guess, is Jorge Jimenez. Their styles are just so diametrically opposed that it's a disservice to Mike Hawthorne. So I'm not going to sit here and say that the artwork is bad by any means, because it's not. It just doesn't feel like it fits the book itself. The storyline, again, it fits within the greater absolute power arc that's happening here. And I think it's a fun, exciting issue as Bruce and Selena are working towards getting to one of the mother boxes that Amanda Waller has possession of. The problem is that this issue is kind of an exercise of believability. And if we're reading superhero comics, we have to understand that this is a silly world filled with silly things. That's what makes superhero comics great most of the time. However, when you stretch that to the point where maybe it breaks, it kind of becomes something of an exercise of futility. This walks that line, and I think it really steps over that line as Bruce takes these great strides to try to hide his identity, and they come up with these guises for themselves and disguises, and then it's totally turned on its head by him just revealing himself to be Batman. It just took a weird turn for me, and it really just pulled me completely out of the book for one moment. That's all it took for it to really kind of like get struck down the list a couple for me. So Batman 151, if you read it, let me know what you were thinking. Next up, we have The Boy Wonder #4, written and drawn by Juni Ba. This was another really fantastic installment of this series as we kind of just delve deeper into the themes and tones of the book. In this particular, it's about Damien facing his demons, and it's about, the inner demons that he has as he's trying to work towards, being a better person as Bruce, his father, has kind of put him on that path, but also trying to continue his lineage as, Talia's son and the grandson of Ra's al Ghul. So it's a really cool look at, him struggling with those demons, him truly fighting the demon head himself, and kind of coming to terms with what it means to be Robin and what it means to be Damien himself. Really great exploration of all these things. I think Juni Ba is telling a masterful story here that kind of it's equal parts fun, but also equal parts, really concise. It's a really well thought out storyline that makes the reader think as well as you're walking through this journey with Damien. Excellent work here. But I would be remiss if I didn't bring up Aditya Bidikar because his lettering is truly one of the three prongs of the triangle that make this book work so well. Really great, masterful work here. It's most of the time you want to look at the lettering as an ancillary thing that where if you call it out, it's almost as if it's, drawing you out of the story. But I'm calling it out because it is something that really heightens the story and really heightens the visual experience. I think that what he's doing here is on a different level, and it really speaks to the way that Juni Ba is crafting this story. As I've said previously, it's kind of like a fairy tale, almost folklore type of approach to the story of Damien. Really awesome, really complimentary, and I love what they're doing in this book. And with our next issue, let's talk Cruel Universe #1, written and drawn by a variety of different individuals. So this is the sci-fi half of Oni Press's kind of reestablishing of the EC property, one kind of being the horror and one being the sci-fi. This is the sci-fi version of that. And it was a really fun exploration of a lot of different things here as we've had it's kind of an anthology series. We see a multitude of stories play out through this and they're kind of, bite-sized things. The trope of that is that there's usually a twist to the end of the story. And those twists in this first issue are so earned and so fun. Like some of them, albeit were a little bit you could see them coming. However, it didn't take away from the actual experience of the book itself. Now, I do think that Matt Kint and Chris Condon's stories within this book were the most masterfully done. One of them being about a gladiatorial competition here, where we're getting narration from one of the characters, but it may not be who you think it is. Really fun stuff here. The artwork as well. I can't say that it really is akin to what we have gotten from EC Comics in the past. However, it is definitely striking that classic comic book feel in such a great way. Really love what they're doing. Really can't wait to see how these things continue in the future as we get the second issues of Epitaphs from the Abyss and Cruel Universe and how they really just kind of flesh this stuff out because they have been incredibly fun so far. Next up, we have Daredevil #12, written by Saladin Ahmed with artwork by Aaron Cooter. This series continues to just feel artificially stretched out as the storyline of Matt facing his demons has just been ongoing. And, we've seen the notion played out with a multitude of characters at this point in a multitude of different ways. And we need to reach the climax of it. I'm kind of, quite frankly, done with what's happening right now. If it weren't for me being a Daredevil super fan, I probably would have put this book to the wayside because it's a bit draining, to be honest. And the problem is that Saladin Ahmed is a better writer than the story that's being told. Aaron Cooter, when he's on the book, is a good artist. In fact, he's a great artist in most capabilities, but he's not on the book enough for me to say that he has done great in this book at all facets. It's such a hard book to recommend, and it's such a hard book to continue to read at this point because I'm at the point where I need more because there's a lot of great things about this book. They're either not being explored to their fullest capability because they're looking at other things, or it's just that maybe there's not much for the story to tell in those parts of it. I don't know. I'm struggling with this. It's just a really hard read at this point. I'm ready for the next arc, and if I'm hoping it's going to be something a little bit more entertaining than what we've gotten. All right, now that Blood Hunt is officially wrapped up, let's talk Doctor Strange number 18, written by Jed MacKay with artwork by Pasquale Ferry. So we finally reached the end of Jed MacKay's run on Doctor Strange, and I gotta say, I'm a little bit hurt because I feel like this has been MacKay's greatest work within the Marvel universe. And he kind of rose through the ranks and he's done really great work here with Black Cat in the past. There were people that really praised his Moon Knight run, but I feel like Doctor Strange was something just so inherently different and just something that I don't know, he really got to delve deep into the character himself and the greater mythos and the lore of Doctor Strange. It was a really, really wonderful run as we've gotten different mini series with the death of Doctor Strange and Clea taking over the mantle. And this issue is the culmination of all of that. And I have to say, everything he's done in this book has been so well earned and deserved. And the climax that we get is just, it was such a great finalization of everything. Doctor Strange will go on. He'll continue to be a character that we know and love, but MacKay's run on this should go down as being heralded because he's done so much great character development, not only with Strange, but all the ancillary characters as well. Pasquale Ferry's artwork continued to shine throughout this series, as I think there was only maybe a couple issues where we needed a fill-in artist on it, but his layouts continued to be exciting and bold. His artwork continued to be clean. The colors just complemented it so well. Awesome finalizing issue here. I do love that it didn't overstay its welcome. I will give it its kudos there because it does feel like it kind of went out on a high note, right? So I got to give them credit where credit's due. Doctor Strange has been fantastic from start to finish. This was a great ending, and I think that this is going to be one of those character arcs for Doctor Strange that live on for years to come. And with our next issue up, let's talk Public Domain number 7, written and drawn by Chip Zdarsky. Man, this is just a fun book, like through and through. This is just such a great little peek behind the curtain of the greater workings of comic books, comic book publishing, comic book creation, from the writers, the artists, every facet. And now we're starting to see an exploration of the editorial side of comics. And I think it's so fun. This book is really driven by the personalities that Chip writes in here. And if you know and read Chip Zdarsky, you kind of get his subtle jabs and his sarcastic notions, right? And his sense of humor. And it just feels so authentic and real in this book. And it makes it so entertaining. We're now seeing that's, the two people within this book have kind of gotten what they want, right? The ownership of domain has kind of reverted back to its original creator, the artist of the book. And now the writer is the other part of the puzzle. The writer is now struggling to continue to put out issues as they've hired a new writer to write their facet of the story. And it's very tongue-in-cheek looks at some of like the greater personalities in comics, I'll say. Really great exploration as we see these two characters come together to now gripe about the fact that they've gotten what they wanted and it sucks. Really fun, really great issue. I can't wait to see as this continues to move on here because it's again, it's such a fun look behind the curtain of comics here. And Zdarsky, his flavor is just, I guess, what I want in this time right now. So, public domain number 7. If you read it, let me know what you were thinking. And with our next issue, let's talk Scarlett number 3, written by Kelly Thompson with artwork by Marco Ferrari. Uh, this is going to be a hot take here, but I think this is my favorite Energon book amongst the entire line, which is crazy to say because its interactions with Energon itself and the Transformers are like nowhere to be seen. Kelly Thompson is just one of those writers that, for the most part, I really gravitate towards. I think she's telling a very well paced story where everything that happens makes sense, has meaning. There's no fluff necessarily, but also she takes the time to have a little bit of fun. This issue is very action packed. It's basically Scarlet infiltrating this facility, trying to get towards this, the MacGuffin of the issue, which in itself can be entirely stretched out and boring feeling, but she paces it so well, and every single beat makes sense to right when you feel like you need a little bit of something, bam, it's there for you. Really wonderful writing on here, and it's complemented so well by Marco Ferrari's artwork. So when I talk about action, you expect great panel work, great angles, right? Great layouts for how they pace some of these action set pieces, and I think he does it masterfully. It's just such a fun issue, and again, being that it is not necessarily leaning on the Energon universe to kind of make it kind of push forward and make it meaningful, makes it so much more impactful as Scarlet stands on her own within these issues. I love this book. It's just so fun. It's a great palate cleanser kind of book as you can get bogged down with some of the weighty books or you can get bored with some of the heavier books. This is just one of those great books to pick up and just kind of be refreshed by the comic bookiness of it. So, Scarlet number 3, I absolutely loved it. Okay, let's talk Spider Man Reign 2, issue number 2, written and drawn by Kari Andrews. Kari is out to trigger folks yet again, and I gotta say, I'm here for it. This has been so fun as we kind of re explore this old man Peter type of story as Peter is navigating his way through the landscape of this kind of dystopian future and then being pulled back into the past where maybe he can right some of the wrongs that the old Peter luck tends to fall into. What we're finding, though, is that while we may have gone into the past and Peter is definitely looking to do these things, it doesn't necessarily mean he's going to accomplish the task at hand because, let's be honest, it's Peter Parker and he's kind of a mess, regardless of the age that he is. So this was a really fun exploration of that idea, and it's a really fun exploration on mostly the ancillary characters within the Spider-Man universe, as we're kind of working with Felicia Hardy's daughter, or who we believe that to be. We're working with Aunt May, J. Jonah Jameson in this, since he has gone into the past, but we're still working within that greater Spider-Man Reign world, and it feels real and it feels deserved based on the foundation that was laid in the very first Spider-Man Reign series. I love it. It feels energetic and action packed. And again, it feels on brand for the character of Peter Parker and the quote unquote Parker luck. Really fun exploration. Again, there are things in here that people are going to gripe and moan about, but listen, just leave that to the wayside. Just allow yourself to have fun with this because it is a worthwhile fun ride. And next up, we have Ultimate Black Panther number 7, written by Brian Edward Hill with artwork by Stefano Caselli. So, this was a really good setup type of issue. I feel like Brian Edward Hill has kind of given the series a little bit of time with the last couple issues to kind of do some world building, some set pieces being laid out here. And now this is starting to move the storyline forward as we have a greater idea now of the notion of vibranium and what vibranium is. And now this yin to the yang of vibranium, the thing that Moon Knight is going after. This is really working on the characters themselves and building them up, as now T'Challa has to really work toward the notion of what does it mean to be a king and what does it mean for a king to take on a god. Those words are spoken within the book. And it makes me wonder if Brian Edward Hill is maybe a Kanye fan or a Kanye hater. So let me know your thoughts down in the comments there on that one. But really fun notion on what he's playing with here and how he's really developing those ideas. On top of that, we're really playing with maybe what we thought about vibranium and what we thought about its relationship to Wakanda and the Wakandans' relationship to vibranium itself. It's really starting to develop again into this thing where it's almost like what I said with earlier issues of Ultimate Black Panther. It feels like they're developing ideas that are really going to take hold of the greater Ultimate universe here. And that's not something we're seeing in every single Ultimate book. So I'm really excited more so than anything on this book. With that, I want to see big, impactful things happening within this new line of comics because that's what we're here for. If we're not going to be bogged down by continuity, do something big and bold, and that's what's happening here. So I'm really happy to see Ultimate Black Panther start playing with those ideas again, and I think that this issue was totally worthwhile. All right, now I've been a little bit harsh on the post Krakoa X books, but let's talk Ultimate X-Men #1, written by Gail Simone with artwork by David Marquez. This issue has been the most interesting post Krakoa book to come out of the X line. And I think it's because they're not reliant on Krakoa and they're not reliant on overly explaining things. What they're doing is really exploring the characters and really exploring the notion of what does it mean to be a mutant now that basically they have no home, they have no nation, they have almost no identity. What does that mean? How do they navigate this new world? That's what this book is exploring right now, and that's what they're trying to answer. So our main kind of focal point of this issue has been Rogue, and I gotta say, I love that she is the almost leader. It's not a team necessarily, but she's the person that's driving the story, and her character development is kind of being put at the forefront, which is really great because she's such a deserving character of something like that. I can't wait to see kind of how she navigates this world, and kind of the glow up she got with the X-Men '97 series maybe was part of that rumination, right? Maybe we're going to see the Rogue kind of take over and become this huge character. If that's the case, I'm absolutely here for it. Marquez's artwork on this, again, really stunning. I really like that it fits in with what Gail Simone is trying to do. There's really great action set pieces here, particularly with a dragon that they have to fight. So it still leans into the fun comic booky things, even though this doesn't feel like a super heroic team book. They still get those notions. We still get those things to make sure that we're still living within that Marvel universe where silly stuff like dragon fights can happen at a moment's notice. So I kind of love that. I can't say it's my favorite book of the week by any means, but if we're talking about the X line in particular, this is, like I said, has been the most interesting. And I think this is a worthwhile exploration on all of the ideas that they're laying out. It's definitely the most effective of all of the X books. And I can't wait to see where Gail Simone takes this moving forward. And with our runner up pick of the week, let's talk Kaya #20, written and drawn by Wes Craig. This is just a great reintroduction to our characters as we've taken a little bit of break here and we're starting this next arc of the series, which feels like it's going to be very pivotal. We kind of see Kaya and Jin as they're on the run, and we pick back up with them. But what really happens in this issue is that we start to see some of the characters that have been kind of playing as background characters. We kind of see them brought to the forefront, and we see that some of the greater enemies that we've encountered here maybe weren't the biggest enemy that our heroes need to face. And sometimes those enemies, we need to look within ourselves because it could be what's looking at us in the mirror. Really fun exploration of these characters as we see the development. And with issue 19 being a look into the future, issue 20 starts to already set the stage for some of the questions that issue left us with, as Kaya was in receipt of a new arm, as Jin was nowhere to be found. We kind of saw the cracks in that relationship starting to deepen, and this issue starts to crack those even further, as pieces might well be completely missing in the near future. Really fun exploration on these things. I can't wait to see what happens with Jin in the future. We spent a lot of time with Kaya, but I gotta say he is arguably the most interesting character. He's the heart of the book, and I can't wait to see where it takes him, because he is the person that is definitely at the greatest risk of manipulation, and I definitely see that coming down the pipeline. I love this book so much. It's a great heroic story. It's a great journey with these characters, and it's just so worthwhile. So if you're not picking up Kaya, you need to pick up Kaya. It's just the best. I love this book so much, and I would almost guarantee that you would too. And with our top comic of the week, let's talk The Power Fantasy #1, written by Kieran Gillen with artwork by Casper Wingard. Man, this took me completely by surprise. I had some expectations, being that I've enjoyed Kieran Gillen's work in the past, and I've definitely loved Casper Wingard's artwork in the past. But this issue completely blew me away, as what's being explored here is just it's deep, it's weighty. This is really an exploration on ethics within the world of superheroics. We kind of looked at that a little bit with another issue this week here with Ultimate Black Panther. What does it mean to be a king amongst gods? Well, this is an exploration on superheroics, being, if we are the gods, how do we navigate this world, and how do we right the ship, or how do we steer the ship, and should we even do that? Really interesting look at that. It's almost like a notion of The Boys, but played out in a much more a heightened, methodical way. Basically, if you know Manny from Nerdtastic News, this feels like a very Manny book. So shout out Manny if you're watching this. It's well within his wheelhouse here, and it's just really an exploration on all of those things here. The ethics, like, it's not even asking, does absolute power corrupt? Absolutely. This is saying, yes, it does corrupt. How do we navigate the world where absolute power is absolutely in place? Really great story, really great visuals here, as Wingard is fully on display here with his wonderful color palette, the way that he lays out even a conversation, but it's some of these super heroics here. Just such a masterful work here with the artwork that's put in place. I loved every single bit of this issue, and it gives us so much for an issue one, but it also leaves so much more to be explored here, because again, with such a weighty topic here, there's so many avenues that this could be looked at here. It can be seen as a little bit heavy-handed here, but I think it toes that line here expertly with Gillen. You feel like this is something that's been ruminating with him, especially knowing his previous work with things like The Wicked and Divine. So I can't wait to live in this world more. I can't wait to see where these characters continue this story moving forward, and it was absolutely worthwhile for my top comic of the week. So that's what I've got for you this week, but I'm more curious. What were you reading, and what were you thinking? Do me a favor, like, share, and subscribe, and be part of the panel. Leave me a comment down below. Thanks again for watching. I'll talk to you next week.